I showed up on Thanksgiving with a pie. I left with blood on my shirt and a shaky video of my stepmother's assault on the porch. The next morning, the bank called to schedule an appraisal for a home equity loan I never applied for. When your family beats you and steals your identity, do you forgive them? Do you stay quiet? Or do you light the stage and let them perform their own destruction? My name is Daniela Weaver. I am 32 years old, and for most of those years, I've been entirely too polite. The text message lit up my phone screen, stark and cold in the late November twilight. It was from my father. Gordon. We're full this year. Full? Not. We're eating early. Or Delia's parents are in town. It's chaos. Just full, like a no vacancy sign flashed by a tired motel clerk. It was Thanksgiving. I was already on the 10 freeway, heading east toward Riverside Hollow. The air in my car thick with the smell of cinnamon, nutmeg, and the buttery crust of the pumpkin pie cooling in the passenger seat. I had baked it from scratch, a stupid, hopeful gesture, a small, round flag of truce. Beside it, a simple card with a pressed leaf on the front. We're full this year. I should have turned around. I should have taken the next exit, gone back to my quiet condo in Harbor Key, and eaten the entire pie myself. But I am Daniela Weaver, and I was raised to be persistent, to be the one who tries. It's a trait my father instilled in me before Delia, my stepmother, decided it was an inconvenience. So I kept driving. Riverside Hollow was aggressively festive. Every oversized, beige stucco house competed with the next, draped in elaborate, twinkling lights. Delia's house, I never thought of it as my father's, was at the end of a quiet cul-de-sac. It was blazing with light. I could hear the muffled roar of a football game and the high, thin sound of laughter. It sounded like a perfect holiday. I parked down the street, grabbing the pie and the card. The cold air hit my face, sharp and clean. I walked up the stone pathway, past the perfectly manicured shrubs. I could hear them clearly now. The clink of glasses, the sound of my father's booming laugh. A wave of relief washed over me. The text was just a mistake, a miscommunication. He was laughing. I rang the doorbell. The laughter inside didn't stop, but it muffled, as if a door had closed. I heard the distinct thud of the deadbolt. The door opened, but only a few inches, held fast by the brass security chain. Delia's eye, framed in thick black mascara, appeared in the gap. No one invited you? Her voice was a low hiss, sandpaper on silk. The smell of hot turkey and expensive perfume wafted through the crack. Delia, hi, happy Thanksgiving, I tried, forcing a smile. My voice sounded thin in the cold. I know Dad texted, but I was already on my way. I just wanted to drop this off. I held up the pie, like a shield. We don't need it. We have pie. Okay, I said, my smile faltering. Can I see Dad? Just for a minute? He's busy, she said. The eye vanished. The door started to close. Please, the word jumped out of me, louder than I intended. Delia, I drove all the way out here. I just want to say Happy Thanksgiving. The chain rattled, a sound of angry metal, and the door swung open. Delia stood there, filling the frame. She was wearing a cream-colored cashmere sweater, a string of pearls at her throat. She looked perfect. She looked furious. What is wrong with you? She said, stepping out onto the porch and pulling the door shut behind her, plunging us into the cold. He told you, we are full. It means we don't want you here. It's just a pie, Delia. It's not an invasion. With you, everything is an invasion, she snapped. You always have to make things difficult. You always have to be the center of attention. My hand, resting in my coat pocket, felt the hard, familiar rectangle of my phone. I don't know what possessed me. It was an instinct. My thumb found the side button. A quick double click. The screen would stay dark, but the camera was now recording. I kept my hand in my pocket, the lens pointing vaguely forward. The microphone would be clear. I am not making things difficult, I said, my voice shaking just slightly. I hated that. I am trying to be part of this family. This is not your family, she said. The words were quiet, precise, and they cut deeper than any shout. Gordon has a new family now. You are a loose end, a very expensive, very annoying loose end. He's still my father. And he's tired of you. He's tired of this guilt, this obligation you keep forcing on him. I felt the blood drain from my face. I looked down, defeated. I bent and placed the pie gently on the welcome mat. A surrender. Fine, I said, my voice barely a whisper. Just give this to him. Tell him I tried. I straightened up. I met her eyes. And in that moment, I think she saw that she hadn't quite broken me, that I was still standing. It was the wrong move. Don't you look at me like that, she spat. You pathetic little... She lunged. It wasn't a slap, it was a shove, a full-bodied, two-handed to the chest assault. I was completely off balance, my heels on the edge of the top step. I stumbled backward, arms windmilling in the cold air. There was nothing to grab, nothing except the thick, square-cut wooden post that held up the porch awning. My face hit the post, hard. A sickening wet crack echoed in my head. A flash of white-hot pain exploded behind my eye. I tasted salt and copper. I collapsed, landing heavily on my hip and shoulder on the brick walkway. The impact sent a jolt up my spine. For a second, there was no sound, just the faint, tinny cheer of the football game from inside. Across the street, the neighbors' holiday lights, a frantic, blinking string of red and green, flashed across the scene. Flash, 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 like a warning. I heard a faint, digital chime. Their smart doorbell. It was recording, too. Mom, what the hell? A new voice. My half-brother. Rowan. He was standing in the open doorway, his face pale, a napkin still tucked into the collar of his shirt. She wouldn't leave, Delia hissed, already smoothing her cashmere sweater. She was breathing heavily. I pushed myself onto one elbow. The world was swimming. I put a hand to my face. My fingers came away dark and wet. Blood. My lip was split wide open. Jesus, Rowan muttered. He wasn't looking at me. He was looking at the street, checking if any neighbors were watching. Don't make a scene. I looked past him, into the warm, bright hallway. He was there, my father, Gordon. He was standing by the dining room entrance, a wine glass in his hand. He hadn't moved. He just watched me, his face unreadable. He watched me push myself up from the cold brick, watched me wipe the blood from my mouth onto the sleeve of my coat. He didn't move. He didn't say my name. As I held his gaze, he turned, very slightly. He reached out to the heavy, gold-colored drapes and pulled the curtain closed, shutting me out. The front door clicked shut. The deadbolt slid home. I was alone on the sidewalk, bleeding, in the blinking, festive light. My phone was still in my hand. I had clutched it through the entire fall. My thumb, moving on its own, hit the button to stop the recording. Evidence. I turned and walked away. I didn't run. I didn't look back at the pie sitting on the mat. My car was a block away. It felt like a mile. By the time I reached it, the shaking had started. Not from the cold. It was a deep, seismic shudder of rage and adrenaline. I fumbled the keys, my own blood making them slippery. I locked the doors. The car was an icebox. The smell of cinnamon and nutmeg was nauseating. I pulled down the visor mirror. The cut was deep, a clean vertical split in my lower lip. It was already swelling. My white shirt, where my hand had brushed it, was smeared with red. I rested my head on the steering wheel, just breathing. In, out, in, out. My phone vibrated in my coat pocket, out in the silence. My heart jumped. Dad. An apology. I'm coming out. Are you okay? I pulled the phone out. It was a text, but not from Dad. It was from an unknown, 5-digit number. Northland First, my bank. Northland. First, your HELOC appraisal is confirmed for Monday, November 27th at 10 a.m. Please ensure access to the property. Reply C to confirm. I read it once, twice. HELOC, home equity line of credit. I stared at the words, my throbbing lip forgotten. I had never applied for a loan. I owned my condo, but I was years from paying it off. The equity in it was the only real thing I had. It had to be a mistake, a very specific, very cruel phishing scam. But they had my bank's name, they had my phone number. Someone had used my personal information. Someone had applied for a loan against my home. My blood ran cold, colder than the air, colder than the brick I had been lying on. I looked up, back toward the house at the end of the street. It was blazing with light, full. My hand, slick with blood, dialed my father's number. My fingers were numb. It rang once, then clicked. Hi, you've reached Gordon. Leave a... I hung up. I dialed again, immediately. Beep, beep, beep. Busy, or, more likely, declined. He had seen my name and pressed the red button. In the distance, from across the river, a percussive thump, thump, boom echoed through the night. The town's Thanksgiving fireworks. A spray of red and gold glitter painted the dark sky. A celebration of family. A celebration of gratitude. The sound was a hollow, bitter mockery. I started the car and drove home. My apartment at Harbor Key was dark. I didn't bother with the lights. I walked straight to the bathroom, into the bright, unforgiving glare of the vanity bulbs. The woman in the mirror looked like a stranger. Her face was pale, her lip grotesquely swollen. The blood dried to a black crust. A dark purple bruise was already forming on her cheekbone, right where she'd hit the post. This is what happens when you're polite. This is what happens when you try. I fumbled in my pocket and pulled out my phone. I went to my smart home app, to the permissions for my smart lock. Guest access, Gordon. Guest access, Rowan. They'd had codes for years, for emergencies. My thumb hovered over the delete button. This was the real emergency. I pressed it. Delete user. I pressed it again. Delete user. Their access was gone. I changed my own master code, just in case. I looked back at my reflection, at the cut, at the bruise. I thought of the video saved on my phone. I thought of the text from Northland First. I leaned in, my breath fogging the glass. No more silence, I whispered to the woman in the mirror. No more. I didn't sleep. Sleep felt like a luxury I could no longer afford. I sat in my design studio as the sun came up, the gray light of Friday morning illuminating the harbor. The pain in my lip had sharpened to a precise, fiery line. My cheek was a deep, mottled purple. I made coffee. The movements automatic. Thanksgiving was over. The investigation had begun. I was on the phone at 7:59 a.m., waiting in the automated queue for Northland First. At 8:01, a voice clicked on. Northland First Fraud Department. This is Brenda. Hello? Brenda, I said. My voice was rough, but I kept it perfectly level. Emotion was a privilege, and I had just been evicted. My name is Daniela Weaver. I received a text message last night at 8:14 p.m. confirming an appraisal for a home equity line of credit. I did not apply for this loan. The synthetic cheer in Brenda's voice vanished. I understand, ma'am. That sounds serious. Let me pull up the file. Can you please verify the last 4 digits of your social security number? I gave them to her. The sound of her typing, a rapid clack, 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 filled the silence. Okay, Miss Weaver. I have the application. It was submitted online 4 days ago, on Monday. I did not submit it, I repeated. Yes, I see. Let's look at the contact information they used. Is your primary phone number? She read back a number, Delia's number. No, I said. That is not my phone number. And the contact email address? Is it riverside-family @ No, that is not my email address. I see, Brenda said. She sounded grim. The application was flagged by underwriting for a signature verification, which is why the final steps were delayed. But it looks like the appraisal was scheduled yesterday by a Mr. Rowan Weaver. Is that your spouse? Bile rose in my throat. He is my half-brother. He does not have power of attorney. He has no legal standing in my financial affairs. Got it. The typing became more furious. And the property listed as collateral, 122 Harbor Key, Unit 405. That is my condominium, my primary residence. Miss Weaver, I am freezing this application effective immediately. I am classifying it as confirmed identity theft. Nothing is proceeding. The appraisal for Monday is canceled. What else do I need to do? I asked, my hand tightening around my pen. I strongly recommend you place an immediate freeze on your credit with all 3 major bureaus, Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax. Do it this morning. We will mail a formal packet to your address on file, the Harbor Key address, detailing the fraudulent application and our findings. You should use that to file a police report. Thank you, Brenda. You take care, Miss Weaver. The line clicked. I did not move for a full minute. I opened my laptop and, in 3 separate tabs, I froze my credit, Experian, TransUnion, Equifax. Each click felt like installing a deadbolt. A new email pinged in my inbox, a formal cancellation notice from Northland First. I saved it as a PDF. I then opened my credit monitoring app. There it was, a hard inquiry from Northland First, dated last week. My score had dipped 7 points. I closed my eyes. How? How did they have my social? The memory unspooled, crisp and clear. 10 years ago, I was 22, sitting at my father's kitchen table, the smell of Delia's expensive coffee in the air. I was trying to re-enroll in community college, filling out the FAFSA, the federal aid form. My handwriting was shaking because I was so nervous about asking for his help. "Oh, honey, let me do that," Delia had said, sliding the form away from me. Her voice was pure syrup. "Your handwriting is a mess. The government needs this to be perfectly legible. What's your social?" I had told her. I watched her write it down, not just on the form, but on a small yellow sticky note, which she then pressed inside her household planner. "Just in case," she'd smiled, patting my hand. "For emergencies." The emergency had arrived. She had been waiting 10 years to use it. My rage was no longer hot. It was cold, blue, and structural. I went to my laptop. I created a new, encrypted folder on my desktop. I named it Evidence H. Into it, I created subfolders. Folder 1, Fraud. I saved the PDF from Northland First. I saved a screenshot of the hard inquiry. I saved a screenshot of the original text. Folder 2, Assault. I plugged my phone into the laptop. I transferred the video file from Thanksgiving night. I watched it once, clinically. The lens was pointed low, catching Delia's hands as they shoved me, the sound of my head hitting the wooden post, the thud, and Delia's sharp, "She wouldn't leave." I saved it. Folder 3, Communications. I saved a screenshot of my father's text. "We're full this year." I saved the call log showing my rejected calls to his phone. I went into my Smart Lock app and took a screenshot proving I had revoked Gordon and Rowan as guests. I was building an arsenal. My business phone buzzed on the desk. I run Elm & Arrow, a boutique interior design studio. It's my life, my name, the one thing I built for myself, with my own money, without a single cent from my father. It was a notification, a new review on my professional profile. The review was 1 star. The username was Disappointed Client 99. The review was, "Avoid. I hired Daniela Weaver for a simple consultation, and she was completely unstable. She seems mentally unwell. She took my deposit, and I never heard from her again. Total fraud." My blood went cold. I have never taken a deposit from a Disappointed Client 99. I have never missed a consultation. Another buzz, another notification. Riverside Design Lover, a star. I am so sad to write this. I used to admire her work, but the quality has fallen off a cliff. The designs are tacky and dated, and I have heard from friends that she has a serious drinking problem. She showed up to a meeting smelling of alcohol. Such a shame. Do not hire. Tacky. The word was a fingerprint. It was Delia's signature. A third notification. Rowan's friend. 1 star. My buddy's family is going through hell. This person is a liar and a thief. She steals from her own family. Do not trust Elm and Arrow. This was not a review. This was a coordinated attack. They weren't just trying to steal my home. They were trying to dismantle my livelihood. They were trying to destroy my name so that when I screamed, no one would believe me. I took screenshots of every single review. I saved them to a new folder. Defamation. My personal phone rang. An unknown local number. I stared at it. Was this another attack? I answered, my voice sharp. Hello? Miss Daniela Weaver? The resident in Unit 405? The voice was older, gravelly. Yes, I said. Who is this? My name is Arthur Vale. I live above you. Unit 505. I recognized the name from the mailboxes. Mr. Vale, can I help you? I think I can help you. Miss Weaver, I was on my balcony last night, having a smoke. My smart doorbell camera. It activates on sound. You know, it recorded your conversation on the street last night, the one across town. I gripped the phone. He must have confused me with someone else. Mr. Vale, I wasn't on the street last night. I was in Riverside Hollow. No, child. Not that. The one from your car. After you got home. You were on the phone with someone. Or, I should say, you were leaving a message. It was very clear. My stomach dropped. I hadn't made a call. Wait. After I got home, I had called my best friend, Maya. I had left her a long, sobbing, furious voicemail. I had detailed everything. Delia, the shove, the split lip, Dad pulling the curtain, the HELOC loan. I had used their full names. I had done it in my car, parked in the Harbor Key garage, right under his unit. Mr. Vale, I said, my voice shaking. What did you hear? I heard a young woman who was hurt and who was being robbed by her family. My camera recorded the entire audio. The acoustics in that garage are like an amphitheater. My system caught every word. I wanted you to know I have a copy, in case you need a witness that you were in distress, and that you stated these facts before anyone could accuse you of making them up. The file is time-stamped. I could have wept. Mr. Vale, please, do not delete that. Would you be willing to sign an affidavit swearing that is your recording? Untouched? I'd be willing to do more than that, he grumbled. I'll hold on to it for you. You sound like you've got a fight on your hands. Go get 'em. He hung up. I added Mr. Vale, audio witness, to my mental file. My next call was to the Harbor Key building management. Hi, I said to the manager. This is Daniela Weaver in 405. I am writing to file a formal incident report. I am the subject of a targeted harassment campaign, and I have reason to believe my safety is at risk. I need you to pull and save all security footage from the front lobby, the garage, and the 4th floor elevator bay from the last 48 hours. I am also formally requesting that no guest, vendor, or individual be given access to my unit without my express written and verbal consent, effective immediately. The manager, startled, agreed. The footage would be preserved. The sun was low now. The day was gone. I had spent all of it cleaning my digital wounds and sharpening my digital knives. I walked over to the large white marker board where I sketched out designs. I picked up a black marker. I wrote in big block letters at the top, Case File, Riverside Hollow. Underneath, I listed my evidence. The assault, video porch, audio, Mr. Vale. The fraud, HELOC app, bank docs, credit inquiry, FAFSA memory. The libel, screenshots, 1-star reviews, tacky, old Delia. I stood back, the marker in my hand. This wasn't a family drama. This wasn't a holiday disagreement. I uncapped the red marker. Beside the list, I wrote a new header. The charges. I wrote, identity theft, attempted grand larceny, wire fraud, battery, defamation, harassment. I looked at the board. My face was a mask of swollen, bruised tissue. but my mind was perfectly clear. They had drawn a battle map. They had just forgotten to check who was holding the high ground. The text came on Sunday afternoon. The weekend had been a blur of work. Me trying to salvage my professional reputation, calling clients, posting new portfolio images, and fighting the automated response systems of the review platforms. My face was still a tender, colorful map of the assault. The text was from my father. Tonight, my house, 8 p.m., mandatory. Not, can we talk? Not, I am so sorry. Not even, what happened? Mandatory. The word hung in the air, a command from a man who had forfeited all right to command me. He was summoning me back to the scene of the crime, to the house where he had watched me bleed and pulled a curtain. I'll be there, I typed back, but this will not be a conversation. It will be a presentation. He didn't reply. I spent the next 4 hours at my office printer. I took 3 new 1-inch black binders from the supply closet. I bought a pack of clear sheet protectors and index tab dividers. I was not preparing for a family meeting. I was preparing for a deposition. On my laptop, I printed my case file. Binder number 1 was titled, The Property. Tab A was the original deed to my condo at 122 Harbor Key. My name, and my name alone, was on it. Tab B was the mountain of evidence. 8 years of mortgage statements, every single one paid on time. From my bank account, also only in my name. I printed the last 12 months, a thick stack of paper. Tab C was the Condo Association's resident of record verification, which I had requested on Friday. It, too, had only one name, Daniela Weaver. Binder number 2 was titled, The Fraud. Tab A was the screenshot of the text from Northland First confirming the appraisal. Tab B was the official cancellation email from Brenda in the fraud department. Tab C was the printout of the full HELOC application. I had called Brenda back this morning, and after I filed a police report online and gave her the case number, she had been authorized to send me a watermarked for information-only copy. I had stared at it for an hour, the applicant name, Daniela Weaver, the contact phone number, Delia's cell, the contact email, Riverside Family at, the applicant's social security number, mine. The signature at the bottom was a sloppy digital scrawl that looked nothing like my own. Tab D was the screenshot from my credit monitoring app, showing the hard inquiry from Northland First. Tab E was a printout of the email I found from 10 years ago. A student loan officer confirming my FAFSA application had been received and co-filed by your guardian, Delia Weaver. Binder number 3 was titled, The Attacks. Tab A was a single, high-resolution print of my face from Thanksgiving night, the blood on my shirt, the split in my lip. Tab B was the digital file information for the video, proving it was recorded at 7:03 p.m. on Thanksgiving, at the GPS coordinates of their house. I included a written transcript of the audio. Delia, this is not your family, my head hitting the post. Rowan, don't make a scene. Tab C was the screenshot of my smart lock log, showing I had revoked Gordon's and Rowan's access at 9:18 p.m. Tab D was the stack of defamation, 23 pages, every single 1-star review, with the usernames and the text, and then the final, beautiful, stupid mistake. Rowan's friend, the 1-star review, read, My buddy's family is going through hell. This person is a liar and a thief. She steals from her own family. Do not trust Elm and Arrow. Rowan had posted that from a burner account. But in his haste, he had also left a review on a local pizza place from the same account. Best slice in Riverside, 5 stars. And then, using his real account, he had left a review for the same pizza place. Best slice in Riverside, 5 stars. He had copied and pasted his own review. It was a linguistic fingerprint, a digital twin. I had printed both reviews side by side. It was the sloppiest, most arrogant kind of mistake. I 3-hole punched every page. I slid them into the plastic sleeves. I clicked the 3 binders shut. They were heavy as bricks. At 7:30 p.m., I drove back to Riverside Hollow. This time, there was no pie. This time, I wore my best suit, a sharp, charcoal gray blazer. I put concealer on the bruise, but I did not try to hide the cut on my lip. It was part of my testimony. I didn't park down the street. I pulled into the driveway, right behind my father's pristine Lexus. I walked up the same stone pathway. The holiday lights were still blinking. I rang the bell. Gordon opened the door. He was wearing a fresh-pressed shirt. He looked tired. He tried to manufacture a smile, but it died when he saw my face. "Daniela," he said. "Gordon," I replied. I walked past him. The house smelled of lemon-scented furniture polish. They had cleaned. Delia and Rowan were seated at the formal dining table. The same table that should have hosted a Thanksgiving dinner. Tonight, it was a tribunal. The surface was polished to a dark, reflective shine. Delia was dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. She was in full victim mode. "Oh, Daniela," she said, her voice trembling. "We are so glad you're here. This has all been a terrible, terrible misunderstanding. We were just so worried about you." Rowan just stared at the table, his jaw set. "Sit, sit," Gordon said, gesturing to the empty chair. He closed the dining room doors. In the center of the table was a small stack of papers. A blue pen rested on top. "Now, Danny," my father began, his voice taking on a soothing, paternal tone that made my skin crawl. "We know there's been some friction. Delia was just telling me about these awful, anonymous reviews on your website. It's just terrible. We think someone is targeting you." He slid the stack of papers toward me. "And I think the root of this is all just a misunderstanding about the condo. It's always been a source of tension. So, your mother and I—" He still called her that. "We think it's time to just simplify things. These are just some simple transfer papers. It puts the condo in the family trust. It simplifies the estate. It protects you, really. No one can come after it. It just makes everything clean." I looked at the papers. I looked at the pen. I did not touch them. Instead, I reached down to the heavy canvas bag at my feet. I pulled out the 3 black binders. I placed the first one in front of my father. I placed the second one in front of Delia. I placed the third, heaviest one, in front of Rowan. The sound of the binders hitting the polished wood was a solid, definitive thud. "What is this?" Delia snapped, her victim act vanishing. "I am not in school." "This," I said, my voice cutting through the polished air, "is the mandatory meeting I called." I remained standing. "You will not speak," I said. "You will not interrupt. You will read. You will listen. And then I will give you your options. Gordon, binder, 1, page 1. Please read the title on the deed." He stared at me. "Read it," he fumbled. Opening the binder, he looked down, his shoulders slumped. "It says, Daniela Weaver." "Correct. Now, Delia, binder 2, tab C, the HELOC application. Please confirm the contact phone number listed for me." She glared at me. "This is absurd. Read it, Delia, or I will read it for you." Her eyes darted to Gordon, but he was staring at the mortgage statements in his binder, his face ashen. She flipped the page. "It's my number," she said, her voice dripping with contempt. "It was a typo, a mistake." "A typo," I repeated. "A typo that also included my social security number. Now, Rowan, binder 3, tab D, the final 2 pages. Please read the name on both pizza reviews." Rowan's head snapped up. His face, which had been bored and arrogant, was now sheet white. He saw the side-by-side comparison. He saw his own lazy, idiotic mistake. This is entrapment," he stammered. "You have no—" "I have your linguistic fingerprint," I said. "You used the same burner account that you used to defame my business. You copied and pasted. I've already sent it to the platform's legal department. They find it very compelling." I let the silence sit for a full minute. The only sound was my father. Slowly, painfully, turning the pages of my mortgage history, a history he had no part in. "Gordon," I said. He flinched, as if slapped. He was looking at the hard inquiry, at the proof that someone had used my identity to try and secure a loan. His face was not angry, it was not defiant, it was broken. He had been played. Too. He was a fool. Delia, he whispered. This was to help. The Commons Project. So, it was true. His failed real estate venture. "I am now going to read you something," I said, pulling a single folded paper from my pocket. "This is from the State Legal Code, Section 505.5. Identity theft. A person is guilty of identity theft in the first degree when he or she knowingly, and with intent to defraud, assumes the identity of another person by possessing or using that person's identifying information." I continued. "It is a Class B felony. It carries a maximum sentence of 10 years. Delia made a sound, a choked gasp. I refolded the paper and put it away. "Here is what happens now," I said. "I was the only one standing. I was the judge. I was the jury. This is the first and only plea bargain you will receive. As of this moment, the 1-star reviews stop, the harassment stops, the phone calls, the emails, the use of my name, my credit, my identity, it all stops. Forever. You will not contact me. You will not contact my clients. You will not set foot within 100 yards of my home or my office. If one more fake review appears, from any account, I will not send you a binder. I will walk into the city police station, hand them these 3 binders, and I will swear out a criminal complaint for identity theft, wire fraud, battery, and defamation." I looked at Rowan. "They will love your pizza reviews." I looked at Delia. "The bank has already confirmed it will cooperate fully with law enforcement." I looked at my father. "I will file for a permanent restraining order against all 3 of you, and I will take you to civil court for the assault, the libel, and the full value of the loan you tried to steal. I will take this house. I will take your failing Commons project. I will take everything." Delia was on her feet, her face purple with rage. The tissue was gone. "You ungrateful little," she screamed. "After everything we've done for you. This house, this is a family. This condo was meant for the family." "This condo was meant for me," I said, my voice quiet, but it sliced right through her screaming. "I bought it. I paid for it." I pointed to the papers in the center of the table, the transfer agreement. "Family," I said, "does not use me as collateral." I picked up the blue pen, I clicked it open, and I drew a thick black X across the entire first page of his transfer document. Then I turned and walked out of the room. I left the doors open. I left the 3 binders on the table. I left them with the mirror I had built, a perfect reflection of who they really were. I walked out the front door, into the cold, clean night, and I did not look back. I thought the binders were a killing blow. I thought walking out of that house, leaving them with the black and white proof of their conspiracy, was the end. I was wrong. It was just the end of the beginning. My ultimatum had been simple. If one more fake review appears, I thought the threat of a felony, of 10 years in prison, would be enough to buy their silence. I had underestimated their malice. They didn't stop. They just got smarter. Delia, the blunt instrument, receded. Rowan, the digital ghost, took the lead. They didn't post new 1-star reviews. That would have triggered my ultimatum. Instead, they began to poison the well from within. My business, El Monero, had been built on a pristine 4.9-star rating. It was the result of 8 years of sleepless nights, obsessive attention to detail, and bending over backward for clients. 2 weeks after that Sunday night meeting, my rating was 1.6. They had started a campaign, messaging my old clients, friends of theirs, people from the Riverside Hollow community. Did you hear what she did to her father? Are you aware of her instability? Suddenly, 5-star reviews from 3 years ago were being updated. "Edit," one wrote. "I am changing my review. I cannot in good conscience support a designer who would betray her own family. She has shown her true colors, and they are greedy and unethical. Edit, wrote another. The work was fine, but I've recently learned some disturbing things about her character. I've heard from friends she's unstable and prone to lying. Avoid. It was brilliant. It was insidious. And it was legally fuzzy. Was it a new review? Or just an opinion? I was bleeding out, and the call I had been dreading finally came on a Tuesday. It was Mark, the project manager for the Maple Row townhomes. This was my tentpole contract, the project that was supposed to keep Elman Arrow funded for the next 2 quarters. Daniela, he said, and his voice was heavy with the discomfort of a man delivering bad news. Mark, hey, I was just about to send over the new lighting specs. Don't, he said. He sighed. Look, the work is fantastic. You know we love your stuff, but the board, they're getting cold feet. Cold feet? The deposit cleared. We signed. It's optics. Daniela, we're seeing the reviews, the new ones. We're seeing the chatter on the local forums. A board member's wife is in that Riverside community group. She saw a lot. I knew exactly what she saw. Mark, that's my family. It's a personal dispute. It has nothing to do with my professionalism. I know, you know that. But they see the word unstable. They see unethical. And they're worried about stability. That's the word they used. They want to pause the contract, indefinitely. Paused. The corporate word for dead. Mark, please, you can't. My hands are tied. Danny, wait for this to blow over. Clean it up. Then call me. He hung up. I sat there, the phone silent in my hand. He said, clean it up. I spent the next 3 days in the automated hell of online platform support. I called. I filled out forms. I submitted proof. I got the same email, over and over. Thank you for your report. We have reviewed the content and found it does not violate our community standards. They were opinions. They were protected. Then the smaller clients, the ones I relied on to fill the gaps, started to fall. A kitchen consultation, canceled. A small commercial lobby, postponed. My emergency fund, the one I had so proudly built after I cut them off, was now the only thing keeping me afloat, and it was draining fast. The source of the chatter, the poison Rowan was pouring, wasn't hard to find. He hadn't used a burner account this time. He had used his own, his real name, bathing in the sympathy. The post on the Riverside Community Facebook page was a masterpiece of narcissistic victimhood. It's so hard to write this, but my family is going through hell. My mom and dad are heartbroken. All they did was try to help, try to protect the family legacy, and in return, they've been threatened, betrayed, and slandered. Some people, I guess, only care about money and will throw their own family under the bus for a condo. Please keep my parents, Gordon and Delia, in your prayers. It had 212 sad and angry reactions. The comments were a cesspool. We love you, Delia. Stay strong. Gordon, we are here for you. We know the truth. This is disgusting. I can't believe she would do this after everything you've given her. He had done it. He had taken my evidence, my binders, my proof of their crimes, and spun it. I was no longer the victim. I was the perpetrator. I was the ungrateful, money-grubbing daughter who had attacked them. The silence from my extended family was a deafening roar. No one called. No one texted. Until Friday night. My phone lit up with a number from Oregon. I didn't recognize it, but I answered. Daniela? The voice was like gravel and whiskey. Aunt Lila? Lila, my father's older sister, the original black sheep. She had gotten out of Riverside Hollow the second she turned 18, went west, and never looked back. I hadn't seen her in a decade. Yeah, she said. No need to sound so surprised. I just got off the phone with your father. Oh. He told me his version, about how you'd gone crazy, how you were being selfish about the condo, how you'd threatened him and Delia. He was crying. It was quite the performance. My heart sank. Lila, that's not... Oh, Shut up. I know. I hung up on him and went to that trashy community page. I read Rowan's little novel. So, here's the question. Why are they so scared? What do you have on them? I hadn't cried. Not when Delia hit me. Not when Mark paused the contract. But hearing a single, sane voice in the wilderness, I felt my throat close. I made binders, I whispered, the tears coming hot and fast. Binders? I have proof, Lila, all of it. The assault, the HELOC, the fraudulent application, Delia's name on it, Rowan's burner accounts. I have everything. There was a long silence on the line. Good girl, Lila said, and her voice was no longer gravel. It was steel. You're a weaver, after all, the real kind. Now, stop crying. Crying is what they want. You are going to encrypt that file. You are going to send it to me, right now. I did. I scanned every page, the deed, the application, the screenshot of Rowan's identical pizza reviews, the photo of my split lip. I put it in an encrypted zip file and emailed it. My phone rang back exactly 5 minutes later. Daniela, she said, and all trace of humor was gone. I am looking at a copy of a fraudulent loan application. I am looking at evidence of wire fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy. This is not a family problem. This is not a misunderstanding. This is a crime, a federal offense. I let out a breath I felt like I had been holding since Thanksgiving. They're ruining me, Lila. They're destroying my business, the reviews, the posts. I'm losing everything. No, you're not, she said sharply. You are just in the fog of war. This is what they do. This is what Delia does. She's a parasite. And your father? Gordon is a coward. He's always been a coward. He lets the loudest monster in the room drive. You are doing the right thing, but you are doing it alone. You need a lawyer. I can't afford one, I said, the words tasting like ash. They just killed my biggest contract. You can't afford not to. Get one of those online legal services. $100 for the first month. Get a checklist. Get a template. Fight back. Legally. We hung up. I followed her advice. I paid $99 for a 1-month subscription to a legal advisory service. I got a 30-minute video consultation with a tired-looking lawyer. I gave him the 2-minute version. He nodded, unimpressed. Classic. You've frozen your credit. Filed a police report online. Good. Paper trail. The problem is the defamation. The reviews are libel per se. Rowan's post is slander. So what do I do? You send a cease and desist, he said. A real one, not a binder. A formal legal threat. Sent by certified mail. Return receipt requested. It needs to list the statutes they are violating. Libel, slander, harassment. It needs to demand, in no uncertain terms, the immediate removal of all defamatory content within 48 hours, or you will pursue all available legal remedies, including civil action for damages. He emailed me a template. That night, I didn't work on designs. I worked on that letter. I cited the state codes. I listed every single review. I named Rowan's Facebook post. I listed them as co-conspirators. I also saved a new document, a draft for a personal brand protection injunction, a weapon for later. The letter was cold. It was precise. It was perfect. But it was slow. Certified mail would take days. My reputation was dying now. I looked at the whiteboard in my office. I was playing defense. I needed to go on offense, but I couldn't. Not publicly. It would look unhinged, exactly like they said. I opened my laptop. I went to a free podcasting site. I created a new account. No name, no photo, just a black square. I called it The Binder. I plugged in my Blue Yeti microphone, the one I used for client presentations. I took a drink of water. Episode 1, I said, my voice low and steady. This is a record of events. I am not a narrator. I am a court stenographer. I started at the beginning. Thanksgiving Day, 7:03 p.m. I arrived at my father's home. I was denied entry. I was physically assaulted by my stepmother, Delia Weaver, resulting in a facial laceration and bruising. I played 30 seconds of the audio from my phone. Delia's voice. "This is not your family." The sound of the impact. 8:14 p.m. I received a text from Northland First Bank. I read the text. I read the details from the HELOC application. The phone number, the email, the amount. I read Rowan's "Pray for My Parents" post, word for word. Then I read every single one-star review. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just read the receipts. I uploaded it. I didn't send it to anyone. I just put it into the void. Within 24 hours, it had 1,000 downloads. My DMs on the anonymous platform started to fill. "This is my story. They stole my inheritance. My brother did this to me. Stay strong. We hear you." It was a small, flickering light, but it was a light. That weekend, I walked into my home office, the large, ornate mirror over my desk, a beautiful piece I'd found at a flea market, suddenly infuriated me. It was for vanity, for looking at myself. I took it down. In its place, I hung a 4x3-foot corkboard. I pinned my copy of the cease and desist letter in the center. This was a war room. My phone wasn't ringing. My clients were gone. My contract was paused. So I worked. I sat at my computer for 48 hours straight. I pulled up the Maple Row Townhomes files. Mark had said, paused. He hadn't said canceled. I tore my original design apart. I found a better, cheaper supplier for the reclaimed wood. I redesigned the lighting scheme for the common area. I created a new 3D visualization, a full, immersive, photorealistic walkthrough. The work was sharp. It was clean. It was the best thing I had ever done. I would not be defined by their crimes. I would be defined by my response. I exported the file. My lip had healed, but a faint, white scar remained. A reminder. They wanted to talk about my stability. I would show them my foundation. I would let the quality speak for itself. The cease and desist letter, sent via certified mail, was a satisfyingly heavy object to drop in the mailbox. It felt like a physical move on the chessboard, a tangible piece of my defense. But it was slow, and as I waited, the poison from Rowan's Facebook post continued to spread. My anonymous podcast had listeners, but they were strangers in the dark. I was still losing the public war. Then, on Wednesday, my phone chimed. A new email from Lila. The subject line was just, "Found something." The body of the email was short. "Was cleaning out Mom's old house. Found the file cabinet. Don't know if you've ever seen this. Don't forgive them." Attached was a single, scanned PDF. Last Will and Testament of Evelyn Weaver, my grandmother. I opened it. It was dense legal language, but on page 4, a section was highlighted. It was a trust, a small educational trust, established for me, her only granddaughter, 10 years ago. It wasn't a fortune, but it was significant, enough for 4 years of tuition at a state university, with a little left over. My breath hitched. I had never seen this. I had been told my grandmother left me nothing but a set of china, which Delia, of course, kept. I read the terms. The custodian of the trust, the man with co-signing authority, was my father, Gordon Weaver. My blood turned to ice. I scrolled down. Lila had attached a second document, a bank statement from the trust account. It was dated. It was dated the exact same week, 10 years ago, that I had been forced to postpone my college plans. The week my father had sat me down at the kitchen table and told me the money just wasn't there. The week he'd said my plan for a 4-year university was selfish, and that I'd have to go to community college instead, if I could even afford that. This statement showed the balance of the trust, $45,000, and then a single withdrawal. 1 day later, full balance withdrawal. The signature at the bottom, Gordon Weaver. He hadn't just told me the money wasn't there. He had taken it. He had stolen my education. He had stolen my grandmother's last gift to me. I looked at the date again. It was the same year Delia had started flipping houses. The same year she had suddenly, miraculously, come into some money to give Rowan his startup for a failed landscaping business. My phone rang. It was Lila. Did you get it? She asked. He stole it, I whispered. I was numb. He stole it, Lila. Yeah, honey, he did, she said, her voice hard. And guess what else I found? A bunch of old texts from Delia on my old phone, bragging about how she was so smart. She'd figured out a way to fund Rowan's future. Using that ungrateful girl's college money. She was laughing about it. Said you were too stupid to notice. I collapsed into my desk chair. The HELOC, the condo. This wasn't a new plan. This wasn't a recent act of desperation. This was round 2. This was the continuation of a decade-long pattern of theft. They had drained my past, and now they were back to drain my present. The timeline clicked into place with horrifying clarity. Step 1. Steal the trust fund. Step 2. Force me to drop out of university, ensuring I was less educated, less powerful, and less likely to secure a high-paying job. Step 3. Guilt me into putting every cent I did make into my own home, my own asset. Step 4. Wait until that asset was valuable. Step 5. Steal that, too. Daniela? Lila's voice was sharp, pulling me back. Are you there? Yes, I said. Yes, I'm here, Lila. They did this before. This is what they do. I know, she said, but you're not that 22-year-old girl anymore, and I'm not done. I've been making calls. You're not the only one who got stiffed at Thanksgiving. I spoke to the caterer. You know, fancy feasts over in Riverside, the one Delia always uses to show off. What about them? She's been telling everyone how expensive her party was. Well, I had a hunch. I called them. Pretended I was Delia's assistant, checking on an invoice. The invoice. Daniela? It wasn't in Delia's name. It wasn't in Gordon's name. I didn't have to guess. It was in my name, I said. Bingo. Daniela Weaver. Billed to a new, fake email address. dweaverdesigns@ageneric.com. She used your professional identity to order her goddamn turkey. And the signature on the deposit? It's a clumsy, forged digital script. D. Weaver. Doesn't look like yours at all, does it? She emailed me the invoice while we were on the phone. Another PDF for the folder. Another piece of the fraud. Another charge. Delia had used my name to secure services, just like she'd used it to secure a loan. A knock on my apartment door made me jump, nearly screaming. I looked at the peephole. It was just my neighbor, Mr. Vale, from upstairs. Lila, I have to go. Go, she said. And Daniela? Burn them to the ground. I opened the door. Mr. Vale stood there, hat in his hands. Miss Weaver, he said, his gravelly voice low. I apologize for bothering you, but I found something else. I felt you should see it. Mr. Vale, anything. What is it? I was checking my security logs, he said, pulling a small tablet from his bag. I was looking for the audio I gave you, but I found this. It's from the night before Thanksgiving, Wednesday night. He pressed play. It was footage from his smart doorbell, the one that had recorded me in the garage. This, however, was aimed at the street. It was dark, but you could see a car parked, one I recognized, Delia's car. And you could hear her doorbell, the one across from their house, must have a two-way talk feature. A tinny. Digital voice. Can I help you? And then Delia's voice, not from the street, but from her own house, projected through her own doorbell. No one invited you, she was saying. Her voice was testing, practicing. We don't need it, she said to the empty night. We have pie. She was rehearsing. She was running lines. The entire confrontation on the porch, the one that ended with my blood on the bricks, was not a moment of spontaneous anger. It was a premeditated performance. She had planned to reject me. She had planned to turn me away. She had, in all likelihood, planned to provoke me. She just hadn't planned on me recording her. She was practicing, I said, my voice hollow. She set me up. Looks that way, Mr. Vale said, his face grim. She tested that line. No one invited you. 3 times. I'll email you the file. I closed the door and leaned against it, my head spinning. This was so much bigger than a loan. This was a conspiracy of my entire family, led by Delia, enabled by my father, and executed by my half-brother. The question was, why? Why this sudden, frantic, sloppy escalation? The Thanksgiving assault, the HELOC, the catering, the review bombing. It was a full-spectrum attack. All at once, it reeked of panic. "The Commons Project," I said aloud. I went to my laptop. I started digging, not as a designer, but as a forensic accountant. I searched the Riverside County Public Records. Riverside Commons, LLC. There it was, and the primary investor, Gordon Weaver. And then, the other filings, a mechanic's lien, filed 2 weeks ago by a major contractor, a second lien, filed by a concrete supplier, and then, the article I'd missed in the local Riverside Business Journal. Riverside Commons project stalls amid funding crisis. I read the article. It was a disaster. Gordon had over-leveraged. The project was hollow. He had defaulted on payments to his primary contractor. A leaked email, quoted in the article, was from the contractor's lawyer. "This is a final demand. If payment in the sum of $150,000 is not received by December 1st, we will be forced to file suit and pursue all assets, personal and corporate." December 1st. He had 2 weeks. 2 weeks to find $150,000. The HELOC. They weren't trying to steal my condo just to be cruel. They were trying to steal its equity to plug the hole in my father's failing business. Delia didn't just see me as a loose end. She saw me as the reserve fund. I was the life raft for their sinking ship. And when I showed up with a pie instead of a blank check, she had enacted a plan to remove me, discredit me, and take what she needed anyway. I walked to my whiteboard. The charges were all there. Identity theft, fraud, battery. I uncapped the black marker. I added a new one. Financial exploitation of a vulnerable relative. No, that wasn't right. I erased it. Conspiracy to commit grand larceny. I stood back, looking at the map. The red arrows were clear. It started with Delia's greed. It flowed to Gordon's weakness and his business debt. It trickled down to Rowan, the attack dog, happy to get the scraps. They were a closed system, a parasite feeding on itself, and they were trying to feed on me. I had a choice. I could take my binders, my new evidence, my podcast, and I could just disappear, change my name, move to a new state, and let them self-destruct. Or I could sever the system, for good. I erased the board, all of it, the charges, the evidence, the names. I picked up the marker and wrote 3 words. Legal. Public. Financial. This was my new plan. Under legal, I wrote, hire a real lawyer, file injunction. Under public, I wrote, control the narrative, the binder, go on record. Under financial, I wrote, protect assets, notify all contractors of the fraud. My $99 legal consultation was over. It was time for a real law firm. It was time to stop playing defense. I picked up the phone. I searched for the top civil litigation firm in the city. I scheduled a consultation. I didn't care what it cost. The trust fund my father had stolen from me? I would consider this its long overdue expense. I looked at the scar on my lip in the reflection of my computer screen. They thought I was a resource to be plundered. They were about to find out I was the one holding the receipts. And the match. My $99 legal consultation had been a bandage. My meeting with Sarah Hayes was the surgery. She was a partner at the city's top civil litigation firm, a woman who looked like she could invoice you for blinking. Her office was a glass box high above the city, a place of quiet, expensive power. I had walked in with my digital binders and the new evidence from Lila and Mr. Vale. I didn't cry. I didn't plead. I presented. She listened for 30 minutes straight, her pen still. When I finished, she picked it up and made a single note on her pad. "This is not a family drama, Miss Weaver," she said, her voice crisp. "This is a criminal enterprise with a shared bank account. Your father's cowardice, your stepmother's malice, your half-brother's greed. It's the same story I see every day, just with different window dressing. The good news is, they are sloppy." She leaned forward. "Your binders are excellent, but they are a shield. From this moment, we go on offense. Here is what we do, not what we suggest, what we do." "First," she said, "my online police report was insufficient." She had her paralegal schedule me for an in-person, sworn statement with the Economic Crimes Division. "I want a formal case number," she said. "I want a detective assigned. We may not use them, but we want the threat to be real, tangible, and on a police department letterhead." Second, the cease and desist I had sent was a polite request. The one she was drafting was a legal grenade. "We are sending a formal demand to cease and desist and preserve evidence via bonded courier to Delia, Rowan, and your father, individually," she said. "This is not a please stop. This is a you have 48 hours to remove all defamatory content, and you are now legally obligated not to delete, alter, or destroy any text, email, or digital account related to this matter. Violation is a separate offense. We will attach a full exhibit list. We will show them, in excruciating detail, the prison sentence we are holding in our hand." Third, the assault. "The fraud is complex, but the battery is simple." Hayes said, "Delia put her hands on you. You bled. You have a video. You have a scar. We are filing for a temporary restraining order, an emergency order, 100 feet, no contact, direct or third party. The hearing will be fast. This will be the first shot across their bow." Fourth, she had her team send a formal letter of evidence preservation to my building management. My request had been a courtesy. Hers was a legal directive, ensuring the logs from the smart lock, the garage, and the lobby were downloaded and chain of custody was maintained. I walked out of that office feeling lighter than I had in a decade. I was no longer a one-woman army. I had just hired a general. While the legal engine roared to life, I focused on my own front, the public and financial columns on my whiteboard. My professional website was still a wasteland of one-star edits. I couldn't delete them. I couldn't fight them. So I would make them irrelevant. I bought a new, clean domain. My name, Daniela Weaver, design. No El Monero, no company name to review bomb, just me. I spent a weekend building it. It was stark, minimalist, and confident. It had no reviews page. It had no blog. It had only 2 sections, philosophy and case studies. I uploaded my best work, the lofts, the Brookside Cafe, and at the top, I placed the brand new, photorealistic 3D renders for the Maple Row townhomes, the ones I had created in my darkest week. The work was the defense. The work was the only review that mattered. The contact page was not a form. It was a simple single line. Portfolio available by request. Inquiries are directed to my project manager. I was the project manager, but it sounded formidable. It created a firewall. Next, the public front. The anonymous podcast had been a release valve. Now, I needed to be a presence. I couldn't let Rowan's post be the only Daniela Weaver the community knew. I called the North Key Library. I offered to host a free workshop. Design for small spaces. How to maximize your life with less. It was my expertise. It was giving back. The first workshop, advertised only on the library's community board, had 6 people. The next week, it had 20. People came in with photos of their cluttered apartments, and I helped them. I gave them real, actionable value. I wasn't the unstable woman from the internet. I was the one who could help them figure out where to put their sofa. I was rebuilding my reputation 1 square foot at a time. And then, it happened. A woman who attended my workshop, a woman who ran the local business association, emailed me. "I was so impressed with your presentation," she wrote. "You have such a clear, no-nonsense approach to value. The Rivermark Young Entrepreneurs Fair is in 2 weeks. Our keynote speaker just dropped out. I know this is last minute, but would you consider speaking?" This was it, the public stage, not a courtroom, not an anonymous podcast, a real respected community event. "Yes," I replied. I would be honored. I have the perfect topic. I opened a new document. I typed the title: Family is not collateral. Protecting your assets, your business, and your boundaries. The legal and public engines were firing, and just as Ms. Hayes had predicted, the evidence began to avalanche. Lila called, her voice electric. "Got him," she said. "Got who?" "The notary, the one from the catering invoice. Delia didn't just forge your name. She got it notarized to make the contract look official. She told the notary you had signed it in her presence, but forgot the seal. She bullied him into it. He's a new guy, terrified of her, but it turns out he's more terrified of the state bar. He kept her text messages. He's willing to sign an affidavit and testify that Delia Weaver knowingly induced him to falsify a legal document." I hung up and immediately called Miss Hayes. The next day, Mr. Vale forwarded me an email. It was a formal request from my lawyer's office for his sworn, notarized affidavit, confirming the time, date, and content of his audio and video recordings. "They're playing hardball," he wrote me. "So glad I'm on your side." The court, presented with a sworn affidavit of physical assault, a police report for identity theft, and proof of ongoing harassment, did not hesitate. The emergency hearing for the temporary restraining order is set. Ms. Hayes emailed me. Thursday, 10 a.m., they will be served tomorrow. And then, exactly as she said, the panic began. The first was a text from Delia. It came at 11 p.m., after the courier had undoubtedly served her. "Daniela, this is a nightmare. You have misunderstood everything. This is a game your lawyer is playing to get money. We are your family. We love you. Please call me. We can fix this. This legal path will destroy us all." I read it. I felt the familiar pull, the guilt, the "what if I'm wrong?" Then I saw the second text, which came 1 minute later. "If you set foot in that courtroom, you will regret it. You are tearing your father's world apart. You selfish, ungrateful child. I will not be threatened." Peace and threats, the classic abuser's waltz. I did not reply. I took screenshots of both. I forwarded them to Ms. Hayes with one line: "For your file." Her reply was instant. "Excellent. This is third-party contact and a direct threat. It's a violation before the order is even in place. She's building our case for us." Next was Rowan. I didn't get a text. I just had a thought. I checked the link to his burner account, the one that had left the pizza review. This account has been deleted. He was stupid. He was arrogant. And now he was terrified. He was erasing the evidence, not knowing I had printed, certified, and notarized every single screenshot weeks ago. He was just confirming his own guilt. The last call came on Wednesday night, the night before the hearing. It was my father. He hadn't been served at the house. Ms. Hayes had served him at his failing office at Riverside Commons, a move of pure, calculated psychological warfare. I looked at his name on my screen. I let it ring 4 times. I answered. "Hello, Gordon?" "Danny," he whispered. His voice was broken. "Danny, girl, please, don't do this. Don't go to that court. You don't understand." "I understand a fraudulent loan application," I said, my voice dead. "I understand a stolen trust fund. I understand you pulling a curtain." It wasn't like that," he stammered. "Delia. The project. Danny. The project is all we have. If it fails, we lose the house. We lose everything." "You lost everything," I said. "When you signed your name to my grandmother's trust and stole my education." There was a long, terrible silence. He was, for the first time, speechless. "What do you want?" he finally whispered. "Money? Is that it?" "I want you to stop," I said. I can fix this," he said, a new, pathetic hope in his voice. "The old house, your grandmother's house, I still own it. It's not much, but it's yours. I'll sign it over, right now. Just call off the lawyers. Tell them you made a mistake. Please, Danny, don't do this to us. Don't do this to me." He was bargaining. He was offering me a worthless, dilapidated house in exchange for my silence on a Class B felony. "My lawyer is Sarah Hayes," I said. "You can send your offer to her. Do not call this number again." I hung up. I stood in my quiet apartment, looking out at the lights of the harbor. The stage was set. The couriers had delivered the scripts. The witnesses were in place. The hearing was in 12 hours. The lights were coming up, and I was, for the first time, ready. The Rivermark Winter Lights Festival was not a subtle affair. It was a full-blown explosion of holiday cheer, spread across the town square. Thousands of tiny white lights were strung from every tree. The air was sharp with cold and thick with the smell of roasted almonds and hot cider. A high school choir was singing carols, their voices thin and earnest against the buzz of the crowd. This was the public stage. I stood in the small, canvas tent that served as the backstage, rubbing my gloved hands together. My Tro hearing had been a sterile, silent victory. They hadn't shown up. The judge had granted the 100-foot restraining order in their absence. It was a piece of paper, a legal shield. This, however, was a public-facing sword. My speech was titled, "Family is Not Collateral." I had practiced it until my throat was raw. I was scheduled for 7:30 p.m., the keynote for the Young Entrepreneurs Fair, a small but locally prestigious part of the festival. 5 minutes, Miss Weaver. The organizer, a flustered woman with tinsel in her hair, had said. I was checking the connection from my laptop to the large projector screen when I saw them. They were standing near the back, by the hot cider stand, as if they were any other proud local family. Delia, Gordon. Delia was wearing a winter white wool coat, her hair perfect. Gordon was beside her, his hands jammed in his pockets. They were not looking at the stage. They were talking to another couple, laughing. Delia's head was tilted back, her pearls visible, a perfect, manufactured portrait of community. My blood did not run cold. It did not run hot. It just stopped. This was a calculated move. They knew I had the restraining order, but the order covered my home, my car, and my office. It did not cover a public town square. They were here to prove that, to show me, and the town, that they were not afraid, that they were the victims, the loving parents, here to support their troubled daughter. The choir finished. The organizer was at the podium. And now, a woman who is redefining resilience in our local business community. Please give a warm Winter Lights welcome to the founder of Elm and Arrow, Daniela Weaver. A smattering of polite applause. I walked onto the small, carpeted stage. The floodlights were hot and blinding. I could not see the crowd clearly, but I knew, viscerally, that they were out there, 200 people, maybe more, and 2 of them were Delia and Gordon. "Good evening," I said. My voice was amplified, booming over the square. It sounded stronger than I felt. I started with my prepared remarks. I talked about asset protection. I talked about digital security. I talked about branding. "We build firewalls to protect our data," I said. "But we often leave the front door unlocked for the people who share our last name. We think of our businesses as separate, but they are not. They are extensions of us, and when our boundaries are violated, our businesses are the first to bleed." I clicked the remote. The first slide appeared. It was the title, "Family is Not Collateral." "I'm not here to talk theory," I said. "I'm here to present a case study about what happens when those boundaries are not just crossed, but systematically demolished." I clicked again. The next slide was a single, blurred image. It was the photo I had taken in the dark, of the pumpkin pie sitting on their welcome mat. The focus was soft, the colors muted, but you could see the dollop of whipped cream I had put on top. "This case study begins on Thanksgiving," I said. The crowd quieted. The carols were done. "It begins with a gesture of peace, a pie, but this pie was rejected." I clicked again. The next slide was a blurred shot of my white shirt, the one from my bathroom mirror, with the dark smear of blood on the collar. And the person bringing it was rejected, violently. I heard a sharp, collective intake of breath from the front row. "When you cannot get compliance," I continued, my voice steady. You move to control. When the person cannot be controlled, you move on to their assets. I clicked again. A new slide. A simple, brutal timeline. Day 1, assault. Day 4, identity theft. The person in this case study, let's call her Jane, had her identity stolen by the same people who rejected her pie. They applied for a home equity line of credit against her home, using her social security number, her name, her life. I clicked. The screen filled with the screenshot of the hard inquiry from Northland First. The words, hard inquiry, were circled in red. I clicked again. The email from the bank. Your HELOC appraisal is confirmed. The crowd was no longer rustling. They were dead silent. This is not a theoretical risk, I said. This is a document. This is a digital footprint of an attempted theft, a theft predicated on the idea that family means full access, that what's yours is mine, that a daughter is not a person, but a reserve fund, an emergency loan. I clicked again. The collage of the 1-star reviews. Unstable, liar, tacky, thief. And when the theft fails, and the victim speaks, the final phase begins. Character assassination. A coordinated campaign to paint the victim as the perpetrator, to call her unstable, to call her greedy, to destroy her professional reputation so that when she tells the truth, no one will believe her. A voice, not mine, came from the middle of the crowd. My God, a woman said. That's them. That's the Riverside Design Lover Review. They did that to my bakery last month. Another man spoke up. And Rowan's friend. They hit my hardware store. A murmur rippled through the square. People were turning, looking at each other. The poison Delia and Rowan had spread was suddenly visible, a pattern, a connected web. They hadn't just attacked me. They had attacked the community. And that's when Delia broke. She is lying. The scream was animal. It was not a word, but a noise of pure, undiluted rage. Delia was pushing her way forward, shoving past people, her white coat a blur. Gordon was right behind her, his face a mask of pale, sweating terror. Delia, no, not here. For God's sake, stop. Delia reached the front, her face contorted, pointing at me. She is making it up, all of it. She is a sick, vindictive, unstable girl. She attacked us. She is the one who is threatening her father. She's lying. The crowd was frozen. The organizer was already motioning for security. I did not move. I did not speak. I let her scream. I let the entire town see the mask of the concerned mother evaporate, revealing the raw, frantic malice underneath. When she finally paused to take a breath, I just looked at her. Delia, I said, my voice quiet, but the microphone carried it everywhere. You're right. It's so easy to lie. Anyone can say anything. That's what you're doing right now. I looked down at my laptop. The problem with a digital world, I said, is that it records everything. You said I'm lying about what happened on that porch. You said I'm the one who's sick. I wonder, whose voice is this? I clicked the trackpad. It was not the video, it was just the audio. The file from Mr. Vale's doorbell, the practice session. The sound, crisp and clear in the cold night air, played over the festival speakers. A tinny, digital chime, and then Delia's voice, testing, practicing. No one invited you. A pause. We don't need it. We have pie. Another pause. Her voice, harder this time. This is not your family. The silence that followed was absolute. It was a vacuum. Every person in that square, every vendor, every choir member, every security guard was motionless. Delia had stopped screaming. Her mouth was open. And Gordon? My father. He had frozen. His hand, which had been grabbing for Delia's arm, was suspended in midair. He wasn't looking at me. He was staring at the speaker, his face a void. He knew that was not the sound of the assault. He knew that was the sound of premeditation. He knew, in that instant, that I had the proof of the plan. I wasn't done. I clicked again. The audio from my phone. The real event. The sound of Delia's hiss. You pathetic little... The thud of my face hitting the wooden post, my own choked gasp, and Rowan's young, terrified voice. Mom, what the hell? Followed by Delia's sharp, adrenaline-fueled hiss. She wouldn't leave. Gordon cringed. It was an involuntary, physical movement. He had not just pulled the curtain on the assault. He had been living with the lie of it. Now, the lie was dead, broadcast to the entire town. The organizer was at my side. A tall security guard was walking calmly toward Delia. Ma'am, the organizer said, her voice amplified by the podium mic. You are disrupting this event. We need you to leave, now. You can't, Delia started, but her voice was weak. The power had evaporated. Ma'am, now, the guard said. Delia turned, her face crumbling. She was no longer a pillar of the community. She was a woman who had been caught. She grabbed Gordon's arm, and this time, he moved. They turned and walked. No, fled, through the silent crowd. The sea of people parted for them, their faces a mixture of pity, disgust, and shock. I stood there, watching them go. When they were gone, I turned back to the microphone. My speech was in tatters. My hands were shaking. Family is not collateral, I said, my voice thick, but I did not cry. Your reputation is not a toy, and the truth will always have better documentation. I nodded to the organizer. Thank you, that's all I have. I stepped off the stage. The silence broke into a roar of conversation, and then applause. It was scattered at first, then it grew. People were clapping. The woman who owned the bakery was crying. A man stepped in front of me, blocking my path to the tent. He held up a press badge. Janice Rourke, Rivermark Ledger, he said, his voice urgent. Miss Weaver, can I get a quote? What was that? I took a deep breath. I was exhausted. I looked at the man's notepad. I think the audio speaks for itself, I said. But if you need a headline, tell people. Just tell them to let the documents speak. The truth is in the binders. The article that ran on the front page of the Ledger the next morning was not subtle. Riverside Commons backer, wife, accused of assault, fraud in shocking winter lights, keynote. It was everywhere. It was the only thing anyone in town was talking about. They weren't just talking about the assault. They were talking about the hard inquiry. They were talking about the pattern of abuse. They were talking about the abuse of trust. And then, my email, which had been a graveyard, came back to life. The first was from Mark at Maple Row Townhomes. Daniela, I just read the Ledger. I am speechless, and I am sick. I have a copy of the unstable email I was sent. I am forwarding it to you. I am so sorry I ever listened to it. The board has scheduled an emergency meeting. The pause is over. Please, call me. The second was from an old client. I am one of the people who edited my review. I am so ashamed. I am deleting it now and posting the truth. I believe you. One by one, the one-star edits vanished. In their place, 5-star reviews reappeared, this time with new comments. This designer is a survivor, and Elman Arrow is built on integrity. The public smear campaign had been met with public, undeniable, audio-visual truth. My reputation was no longer a shield, it was a fortress. My presentation at the Winter Lights Festival was not an end, it was an accelerant. The front-page article in the Rivermark Ledger landed on Monday morning. It was a tactical bomb, and my lawyer, Sarah Hayes, was a master of a ground campaign. The article is not a victory, Miss Weaver, she said on our call that morning. It is leverage. It has just incited them to spoliation. Spoliation? Destruction of evidence. Rowan is, at this moment, deleting his burner accounts. Delia is scrubbing her text messages. They are in a panic, and panicked people make mistakes. She didn't wait. That same day, she filed an emergency motion to compel the preservation of all electronic evidence from Delia, Gordon, and Rowan Weaver. It was a sweeping legal net, demanding that their phone providers, email hosts, and social media platforms freeze and preserve every byte of data from the last 6 months. It meant that even if Rowan deleted his accounts, the data was already trapped. He was, in effect, signing his own confession. The second move was financial. Brenda, the fraud manager at Northland First Bank, had also read the ledger. She had already canceled the HELOC, but the article had embarrassed the bank. They had almost been tricked, and they did not appreciate it. I received a formal, registered letter from their executive office. They were placing a permanent, high-alert security flag on my Social Security number. For the rest of my life, no credit inquiry, no loan application, no transaction over $5,000 could be processed using my SSN without me, in person, at a physical branch, presenting 2 forms of government-issued identification and answering a series of specialized security questions. They had turned my identity into a vault. Delia's key was now just a useless piece of metal. My third front was my reputation, the one they had tried so hard to dismantle. I spent that Monday emailing the legal departments of the big review platforms. My previous complaints, as a lone business owner, had been met with automated rejections. This time, my email was different. The subject line was, Formal Libel Complaint, Case Number 72B, and attached media. The body of the email was simple. It contained the affidavit Ms. Hayes had prepared. It contained the link to the Rivermark Ledger article, with its audio transcripts. It contained the police report number. I did not ask them to please review the content. I stated that their platform was hosting demonstrably false and libelous material, and that they were now on notice. The automated responses did not come. Within 3 hours, I had a reply from a real human being at the parent company. Miss Weaver, we are conducting an emergency review of the content you flagged. This is being escalated to our trust and safety team. By Tuesday morning, the war was over. I logged in and watched, in real time, as the edited reviews, the unstable comments, the greedy accusations, all vanished. They were not just hidden, they were purged. My rating, which had wallowed at a 1.6, snapped back up to a 4.9. The public correction was so swift that it energized my real clients, the ones who had been watching in horror. They began to post new reviews with photos of the work I had done, pictures of their finished kitchens, testimonials about the Brookmere project. My professional page, once a graveyard, became a vibrant, living portfolio. I still had my old Elm and Arrow site, which I no longer used. I saw in the analytics that it was still being hit by automated spam bots, a lingering echo of Rowan's attack. I logged into the back end, found the API call that was feeding the spam, and I simply blocked it, a small, technical, satisfying click. The dominoes, now set in motion, began to fall on them. Lila was my eyes and ears in Riverside. She called me on Wednesday. "You're not going to believe this," she said, practically singing. Rowan, he was pitching that new subdivision, the big one out by the lake, a massive landscaping contract, his big break. I repeated, the developer, a woman named Teresa, read the Ledger article. She recognized the username Rowan's Friend. Why? Because he'd used the same one to leave a fake review on her developments page last year when she hired his competitor. Rowan hadn't just been sloppy with a pizza place. He had been a serial review bomber. Teresa's legal team called him this morning, Lila continued. His contract was terminated for fraudulent misrepresentation. She told a friend, who told me, "I can't have a man who engages in public deceit planting my shrubbery. He's done. No one in this town will hire him to trim a hedge." And then, Gordon. My father's clock had been ticking down to December 1st, the deadline from his contractor. The Ledger article had confirmed the one thing the contractor feared. Gordon's emergency funding was not coming. My condo was off the table. The contractor didn't just sue. He filed for an immediate foreclosure on the Riverside Commons project. Gordon received the formal notice of debt. The project was dead. His gamble, using my life as collateral, had failed. The family's response, when it came, was no longer a storm. It was the pathetic drizzle after the hurricane. Delia sent an email. It was not addressed to Ms. Hayes. It was sent to my old personal email, a violation of the no-contact letter she had already received. It was a masterpiece of vague, manipulative nonsense. Daniela, my heart is broken. What has happened to us? This has all been a terrible, terrible misunderstanding. I was only ever trying to help. Your father is a destroyed man. This lawyer of yours is just trying to get rich by tearing our family apart. Please, just call me. We can fix this. Just the family. I did not reply. I did not feel anger. I felt nothing. I hit forward. I typed in Sarah Hayes' email address. I typed one word in the subject line, FYI. Ms. Hayes' office replied to Delia within 3 hours. Her reply was not an email. It was a formal notice, delivered by the same bonded courier. Ms. Weaver, your correspondence with our client has been noted. We will add it to our file regarding your pattern of harassment. We are now formally scheduling your deposition. It will take place on December 10th at 10 a.m. at our offices. A court reporter will be present. Failure to appear will result in a motion for contempt. My lawyer was responding to a vague plea for family with a subpoena. The community, meanwhile, was rallying. The bakery owner, the hardware store owner, and even Mr. Vale organized a small meeting for local businesses at the library. They created a Riverside Review Watch, a shared document and email chain to track and mass report fake accounts. Using my case as their blueprint, my fight had given them a weapon. My own work, now unburdened, began to flourish. The city manager, who had been at the Winter Lights Festival, had seen my speech. He had also seen my new, professional website. He invited me to bid on a small, but highly visible, municipal project, the renovation of the Brookmere Town Hall lobby. I won it, not because of my story, but because my new 3D renders were, objectively, the best. When the first check cleared, a deposit of $10,000, I felt a kind of quiet I hadn't felt in years. I took $1,000, 10%. I wrote a check, not from my business, but from my personal account. I donated it, anonymously, to a local fund for victims of identity theft. The last legal thread was the restraining order. The temporary order was in place, but Delia had the right to contest it at a full hearing. The court date arrived. I was there, with Ms. Hayes. The courtroom was empty. Delia did not appear. Gordon did not appear. Their lawyer, a man who had clearly been paid with the last of their funds, simply stood and said, "My clients do not contest." The judge confirmed the order. It was no longer temporary. For 1 full year, Delia was legally forbidden from coming within 150 feet of me, my home, or my office. She lasted exactly 4 days. It was a Saturday, the farmer's market. It was her stage, her community theater. She was there, holding court by the organic vegetable stand. I was not there to confront her. I was just buying coffee. She saw me. I saw her. I was easily 200 feet away. I did not change my path. She did. She left her cart. She began walking toward me, her face a mask of righteous fury. She was going to make a scene. She was going to reclaim the narrative. She was also being watched. A local cop, the one who had taken my supplemental report, was grabbing his own coffee. He saw her. He saw me. He saw her closing the distance. "Delia," she shouted, pointing at me. "You think you're so—" She crossed the invisible 150-foot line. The officer stepped in front of her. "Ma'am, that's enough." Delia sputtered, pointing at me. "Ma'am, you are in violation of a court order. This is your first and only official warning. The next time, I will be placing you under arrest. Go home." Delia's face, in front of the entire farmer's market, crumpled. It was not the public stage she had wanted. She turned and fled. The storm was over. The only thing left was the debris. That night, I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. "Danny, this is Rowan. Please, no lawyers. Just you and me. We need to talk. She's going crazy. This has gone too far. She's going to ruin all of us." I looked at the message. The plea from the boy who had tried to destroy my livelihood. The boy who was now terrified of his own mother, and of the legal machine he had activated. I took a screenshot. I forwarded it to Ms. Hayes. Then I replied to Rowan. My first and last direct communication. "Rowan, all communication must be directed to my legal counsel. Do not contact this number again." The family storm had not died. It had just been contained. It had moved from my porch and my inbox to a sterile, airless courtroom. It was no longer a personal crisis. It was a legal proceeding. The legal machine, once started, is a cold and relentless thing. It moves slowly, but it grinds everything in its path. My case was no longer just about the restraining order, which was now permanent, or the public defamation. It was becoming, as Ms. Hayes called it, a full accounting. Delia was scheduled for her deposition. Rowan was facing his own legal jeopardy from the developer he'd libeled. Gordon was in a freefall, his project foreclosed upon, his name synonymous with the Winterlight scandal. I thought I had all the pieces. I was wrong. Lila called me on a Tuesday. She didn't say hello. "I'm at Mom's house," she said. "The old one, the one your father tried to barter you with. I'm cleaning out the attic. I found a trunk." My grandmother's house had been sealed up for years, a dusty, sad monument. "Lila, you don't have to do that." "Hush. I found a steamer trunk, full of her old clothes. Smelled like mothballs. But underneath, I found her housekeeping ledgers." My grandmother had been an accountant before she married. She was meticulous. "She didn't just have a checkbook," Lila said, her voice strange. "She had a full double-entry accounting ledger, for the house, for her life, and I found a page. Daniela, I am sending you a picture of a page." My phone chimed. A text. It was a high-resolution photo of a page from a book. The paper was yellowed, the lines faded, but the handwriting was my grandmother's perfect, sharp cursive. The page was titled, "Daniela's Fund." There were entries, deposits, small amounts, birthday checks, dividend reinvestments, and then, at the bottom, a handwritten note in a different pen. It was spikier, as if written with more force. "Daniela's Fund, for her academic dreams, to be held until she is 25. No one is to withdraw." And beside that, a single, sharp, handwritten line, "Gordy, I mean it." "She knew," I whispered, staring at the phone. "She knew him." "She knew her son," Lila said. "She knew he was a coward and a weak-willed fool. She tried to protect you, even from the grave. Now, look at the next picture." She sent another one. It was a printout of a bank transfer notice, tucked into the ledger. The transfer for the full amount, $45,000. The withdrawal that had stolen my education. We already had this from the bank, but my grandmother had a copy too. And in the margin, next to the transfer, she had made a note, 2 letters, circled in red ink. "RC." I stared at it. "RC? What? What's RC?" "I didn't know," Lila said. So I went back through the ledgers, from 10 years ago, from the same week as the withdrawal. Your father had been asking her for money, a lot of it. She'd written down his excuses. I found it, his new project, his big investment, the one he was going to pour his inheritance into. "Riverside Commons?" I said. My voice was a dead, flat thing. "RC," Lila confirmed. "He didn't just steal your money to pay off Delia or fund Rowan's startup. He stole your education fund to be the primary investor in the very same sham project that just collapsed. He used your past to fund his future, and when that failed, he came back to steal your present. It's all one continuous, 10-year crime." I hung up the phone. I did not cry. I was so far past tears. I was in the realm of cold, precise, beautiful mathematics. This was the final variable, the one that connected everything. I called Sarah Hayes. I told her. The silence on her end was profound. "Miss Weaver," she said, and I could hear the smile in her voice. This is no longer a civil harassment suit. This is a conversion claim. This is unjust enrichment. This is breach of fiduciary duty. The statute of limitations on the original theft may be complex, but he has, by his recent actions, proven the pattern. The HELOC was not a new crime. It was the continuation of an old one. This is the key that locks the whole case. What does it mean? I asked. It means we are no longer asking for a permanent restraining order. We are asking for a full civil settlement. We are demanding 1. The full and immediate repayment of the $45,000 trust, compounded with 10 years of interest. 2. Full and documented damages for the libel campaign against Elm and Arrow. 3. All of our legal fees paid. And 4. We demand a formal public apology and retraction to be printed in the Rivermark Ledger. This was not a negotiation. This was an unconditional surrender. Delia, of course, tried one last time to use the only weapon she had, manipulation. Ms. Hayes received a call, not from Delia's lawyer, but from Delia herself, bypassing all protocol. She called me, Hayes said, sounding amused. She proposed a private family solution. She said that we're all adults and that lawyers just make things messy. She offered to have me over for dinner, to talk it through. What did you say? I told her that my dinner invitation would be her deposition notice, and that if she ever contacted my office directly again, I would be filing a motion for sanctions. She did not take it well. The court, meanwhile, was moving, presented with our new evidence, the ledgers, the RC note, the pattern of fraud. The judge was not amused. He signed the order for the preservation of evidence, but he added a new clause. Delia and Rowan were ordered to produce, within 10 days, any and all personal computers, mobile phones, and devices used to access the accounts in question, the burner accounts. Rowan was now in a legal box. If he refused, he was in contempt. If he complied, he was handing us the keys to his conviction. The evidence was now a tidal wave. Mr. Vale, my neighbor, officially signed his notarized affidavit, swearing to the authenticity of both the practice session audio and the Thanksgiving night assault. And then, a new voice, a man I didn't know called Ms. Hayes's office. He was the original contractor on Riverside Commons, the one who had filed the lien. He had read the Ledger article. He hated Gordon Weaver. He's willing to testify, Hayes told me, that Gordon, under pressure, had explicitly promised him a massive cash infusion around December 1st. He said Gordon told him, "My daughter is finally coming through for the family." He's willing to swear to that on the stand. My father had not just seen me as a reserve fund. He had been pre-selling my assets to his creditors. It was time to put it all together. I went back to my whiteboard. I had been a designer, an investigator, and a victim. Now, I was an architect. I drew what I called a rivet map. It's a diagram I use in design to show how one structural failure affects everything else. I put Gordon's debt in the center. A red line shot out to Theft of Trust Fund, RC. Another line from Theft to Delia Rowan Lifestyle. A line from Gordon's debt to HELOC fraud. A line from HELOC fraud to the assault silencing. A line from the assault to defamation campaign discrediting. And a final line from defamation campaign back to Gordon's debt, with a note. Attempt to isolate victim and destroy her credibility to prevent exposure. It was a perfect closed loop of conspiracy, a snake eating its own tail, with me in the middle. The night before the deposition, my personal phone rang. It was my father. He had violated the legal instruction to only contact Ms. Hayes. I knew I shouldn't answer, but I did. I needed to hear it. "Hello, Gordon?" A choked, wet sound. A sob. "Danny, please, I can't. They want to take my deposition." "Then you should go." "No, you don't understand. I'll be ruined." "You are ruined," I said. It was not an insult. It was a statement of fact. "It was Delia," he whispered. The words I had been waiting 10 years to hear. She steered it. She She gets in my head. The money, the project. She said it was the only way. She said you owed us. She said you'd want to help if you knew. But you didn't ask, did you? I said. You stole. 10 years ago. You stole. You didn't just let Delia steer. You were in the driver's seat. You signed your name. I... He had no answer, just another sob. What do you want, Danny? I'll do anything. I'll sign the old house over. I told you. Please. The old house, I said, is a worthless, mold-filled shack that you let rot. And I am not interested in your promises. I am not interested in your excuses. Then what? He begged. What do you want from me? I want a number, I said, my voice cold and clear. I want a check for the $45,000 you stole, plus 10 years of interest, for my lawyer's fees, and for the damage you did to my name. I paused. You are not a father. You are a debtor. You can send your offer to Ms. Hayes. This is the last time we will ever speak. I hung up. The next morning, Ms. Hayes formally sent the civil settlement proposal to their lawyer. It was 8 pages long. It detailed every single piece of evidence: the trust, the ledger, the RC note, the HELOC, the audio, the contractor, the notary. It was not a request, it was a bill. It also contained a new, final clause, a permanent, binding, lifetime no-contact agreement. They were to never speak my name, come within 500 feet of me, or contact me, my business, or my friends, ever again. The response was swift. Gordon and Rowan, through their lawyer, were silent. They were beaten. Delia, however, was not. Her lawyer called Ms. Hayes. He sounded, as she put it, exhausted. Delia, he had said, refuses the settlement. She wants to fight this to the end. She wants to tell her side of the story in court. She believes she can win over a jury. And what did you say? I asked. I told him that was her right, and that I would be filing to have her deposition videotaped, and would be submitting the audio of her practice session as Exhibit A. There was a pause. And then, Ms. Hayes said, her lawyer did the smartest thing he's done all month. He told me that, due to an irreconcilable conflict with his client, he was formally resigning as her counsel, effective immediately. Delia had not just lost her husband's support. She had not just lost her stepson's loyalty. She had lost her own lawyer. She was alone. She was a raving, furious, empty-handed woman, screaming at a legal machine that was about to run her over. The stage was not just set. The lights were up. The audience was seated. And Delia was the only one left in the spotlight, with no lines, no allies, and nowhere to hide. The final knot was waiting to be untied. The hearing was not a trial. It was a summary execution. The courtroom was small, beige, and smelled of old coffee and floor wax. Delia had, against all advice, chosen to represent herself. It was the final desperate act of a narcissist who believed her own performance was a match for the rule of law. She sat alone at the respondent's table, her knuckles white on a stack of disorganized papers. Gordon was not at her side. He was in the back row, a gray, hollowed-out man, flanked by his own lawyer. He looked like he hadn't slept in a month. The judge, a sharp-eyed woman with no patience for theater, looked at the file. "This is," she said, "a very dense record, Ms. Hayes. You have submitted audio evidence. I find that I am more interested in that than in another," he said. She said, "Please, play the audio from Thanksgiving night." Ms. Hayes nodded. "Which one, Your Honor? The rehearsal or the performance?" The judge's eyebrows went up. "Excuse me?" "My client's stepmother practiced her lines the night before the assault. Your Honor, if we could play Exhibit F, the audio from Mr. Vale's doorbell, Wednesday night." The courtroom audio system clicked on, and in the sterile, silent room, Delia's voice echoed, tinny and strange. "No one invited you. We don't need it. We have pie. This is not your family." Delia went rigid, her face, A careful mask of wronged victim turned the color of ash. "And now," Ms. Hayes continued, "Exhibit G, the assault itself, the audio from my client's phone, time-stamped and synced with the neighbor's doorbell log at 7:03 p.m. Thanksgiving." The second audio file played Delia's hiss, the sound of my head hitting the post, a sound so visceral, a crack and a thud, that Gordon physically flinched in the back row and closed his eyes. My choked gasp, and Rowan's voice. "Mom, what the hell?" Delia stood up. "That is taken out of context. She was threatening me. Sit down, Ms. Weaver," the judge said, her voice flat, "or I will have you removed." Delia sat. Ms. Hayes did not stop. She was a shark. She put up the rivet map, the chart showing the flow of money. "Here, Your Honor, is the $45,000 trust, stolen 10 years ago, and here is the RC, Riverside Commons, notation from the victim's grandmother's own ledger. The money flowed directly from a minor's trust to Mr. Weaver's failing business." She put up the catering invoice. "And here is the forged signature, confirmed by the notary's affidavit, where Ms. Delia Weaver used my client's identity to pay for her Thanksgiving party." She put up the HELOC application. "And here is the same pattern, a fraudulent signature, an attempt to steal my client's equity to, once again, pay for Mr. Weaver's business debts confirmed by the sworn testimony of his own contractor." The judge turned to Delia. "Ms. Weaver, you have heard the audio, you have seen the financial records, you have seen the affidavits. Can you explain the HELOC application?" Delia's voice was shaking. "It was a family misunderstanding, a typo." "A typo," the judge repeated, deadpan. "Can you explain the burner accounts used to defame your stepdaughter's business?" "I don't know what that is." "Then can you explain," the judge said, "how your one-star review used the exact unique phrase, tacky and dated, that was also used by 6 other anonymous accounts in the same 48-hour period? Are you a very prolific and very uncreative restaurant critic?" Delia's face crumpled. The performance was over. She was an empty, evil, stupid woman, and the light was on. It was Gordon. He told me to." Gordon, in the back, just put his head in his hands. The judge slammed her gavel. The sound cracked through the room. "I have heard enough," she said. "This is not a family misunderstanding. This is a pattern of calculated, malicious financial and personal predation. The court rules as follows. First, the restraining order is granted. Permanently. 150 feet. No contact, direct or indirect. No electronic communication. No harassment. No defamation. Ms. Delia Weaver. If you so much as send a text message to Ms. Daniela Weaver's third cousin, you will be in contempt, and I will see you in jail. Do you understand me?" Delia, in a small, broken voice, said, "Yes." "Second, the civil settlement. Mr. Gordon Weaver," she said, speaking to the back of the room. "Your lawyer has your signature. You will sign the agreement. You will repay the $45,000 trust with 10 years of compound interest. You will pay for damages, and you will pay every cent of Ms. Hayes's legal fees. You will relinquish any and all claims, now and forever, to the Harbor Key property. This is not a negotiation. This is the bill for your crimes, coming due." Gordon's lawyer simply stood up and nodded. "Finally," the judge said, "this court notes the coordinated, libelous campaign. This court ratifies and confirms the removal of all false and defamatory content from all public platforms, to be completed within 7 days. This case is closed. And Ms. Delia Weaver?" Delia looked up, her face wet with tears. "Get a job," the judge said. "You are dismissed." I walked out of the courthouse alone. The world was silent. A late, wet snow had begun to fall, the fat and heavy flakes muffling the city sound. I stood on the top step, the stone cold beneath my feet. I pulled my coat tight. I took a breath. It was the first clean breath I had taken in a decade. It hung in the air in front of me, a small, white cloud, a tangible, visible piece of my own life. I was not done. I drove back to Riverside Hollow. The house looked different. It was just a house, a sad, beige, over-leveraged box on a sad, beige street. A single police cruiser was parked at the curb, just as I had requested. The officer was there to observe and keep the peace. Delia, in her final pathetic act of defiance, had violated the restraining order in spirit, if not in letter. She had, in the night, snuck onto the porch and zip-tied a new, laminated sign to the very post my head had struck. "Liar and thief lives here," it read. Warning. It was a sign for me, but she had put it on her own house, proving, in the end, that she had no idea who she was even talking about. Neighbors were watching, from behind their curtains, from their doorways, and across the street. Mr. Vale stood on his own porch, a mug of coffee in his hand. He didn't wave, he just watched. He held my gaze and gave a single, slow, respectful nod. The community, once their audience, was now my witness. From down the street, at the absolute edge of the 150-foot line, a figure stood in a winter white coat. Delia, watching, powerless, trapped by the legal boundaries she had forced me to build. The few, sad, leftover Christmas lights on her neighbor's gutter flickered in the gray afternoon. Half of them burned out. The officer, wordlessly, took a pair of wire cutters and snapped the zip tie. He handed me the sign. "For your file, ma'am." I shook my head. "I'm done with files." I dropped it into the trash can by the curb. I had brought my own sign, a small, 3x5, professionally engraved acrylic plaque. I didn't hang it on her porch. I walked to the small, frozen flower bed at the edge of the lawn. I pushed the stake into the hard, cold earth. It faced the street, it said. Simply, no one should be made into collateral. As I turned to walk away, my phone buzzed in my pocket. It was not a text. It was an email, a final, automated confirmation from the last review platform. "This is to confirm that all flagged content associated with your account has been reviewed, found to be in violation, and has been permanently purged." I stood by my car. I looked at the house. I looked at my small sign. I looked at the figure in the white coat, a 150-foot-tall wall between us. I breathed in the cold, clean, snowy air. I got in my car. I drove home. To Harbor Key. To my condo. I walked in. I put my keys in the bowl. I took off my coat. I stood in the entryway of my home, my safe, quiet, beautiful home. I reached out, and I turned the deadbolt. The heavy click of the lock sliding into place was the loudest, most final, most beautiful sound I had ever heard. It was a full stop. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I am so curious. Where in the world are you listening from? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to connect and hear your thoughts on this. Please subscribe to Lila Revenge Stories. Like this video. And if you want to help this story be heard by more people, please hit that hype button.